Good evening, everyone. My name is Ermina. I'm an ESTRA certified midwife and an international patient coordinator at NewLife IVF Greece. Welcome to my IVF Answers by the European Fertility Society. And I would like to thank them myself personally for giving us the platform to have a discussion today. Before we begin, I would like to give you a brief disclaimer and some housekeeping. This event is being recorded, but viewing is anonymous. The recording will be available tomorrow on my IVF Answers platform and on the YouTube channel. And as I present, you can type your questions in the chat at any time. After the presentation, I'll answer as many as I can. Your identifying details will not be visible to any other attendees, so everything will remain anonymous. And with that, let's get started. Today's topic is IVF-ICSI and ICSI at NewLife IVF Greece. We will walk you through the process, the medications, the costs, and most importantly, how a patient-centric approach makes fertility care abroad clear, coordinated, and compassionate. But I realized I jumped right in without a proper introduction. As I said, my name is Ermina. Greek names can be a mouthful, so I've written it on the slide as well. As I said, I'm an ESTRA certified midwife and an international patient coordinator at NewLife IVF Greece. I've been a midwife for about 8 years, and I've worked in assisted reproduction for the last 6.5. My role is to coordinate your treatment, stand by your side, and guide you through every step of your journey. Together with your doctor, your embryologist, and our wider clinical team, we will help you, as we like to say, make your hope happen. But in order to understand how IVF works with NewLife, it helps to know who NewLife is. NewLife is a trusted fertility clinic with over 15 years of experience. We've been operating since 2009, and from day one, we've supported patients from all over the globe. What defines our care is that we follow an individualized approach. There is no one-size-fits-all plan. Every patient is unique, so your clinical protocol, your logistics, how and when and where we organize your treatment are all tailored to you. Transparency, clear processes, and clear costs are discussed upfront. We can offer an expert support system for international patients. We understand how different healthcare systems work, and we can guide you from your first contact throughout your treatment till your pregnancy test and beyond. And you have a dedicated team. You'll have a named doctor, an international patient coordinator, and an embryologist, which will be your core team available to answer questions and keep you informed. But let's align on terminology so everything is crystal clear before we explain the rest. What is IVF and ICSI? Technically, they're fertilization techniques. IVF is the most well-known traditional fertilization technique. It's what made assisted reproduction therapy a household name, and essentially is where eggs and sperm are placed together in a petri dish, so the fertilization can occur naturally when sperm finds and penetrates the eggs on their own. Nowadays, sometimes is used more as an umbrella term, where instead of saying ART, assisted reproduction therapy, we are saying IVF instead. ICSI, ICSI, or otherwise known as intracytoplasmic sperm injection, is when a single sperm is selected and injected directly into a mature egg. This is the more advanced fertilization technique. At NewLife IVF, ICSI is performed for all cases at no additional cost because it consistently yields optimal fertilization rates. But fertilization is just the beginning. What matters is creating embryos and creating top quality embryos. This is why at our clinic, we culture embryos till the blastocyst stage, which typically is on day 5 or day 6 of the embryo development. Why this matters? Because blastocysts have a higher implantation potential, and it's an added layer of protection, a form of natural selection, if I may say so, because embryos that would not have made it to the blastocyst stage would not in the lab would not have made it in the uterus. But in order to get to the stage of fertilization, we need to do stimulation. And to stimulate the ovaries, of course, we use medications. So the main medications that we use are ovarian stimulation medications such as gonadotropins, FSH, LH, a combination of the two. The trigger injection, which is either HCG or agonist, depending on the situation. We have luteal support, typically with progesterone. And depending on everyone's individual needs, we may use other medications such as estrogen, folic acid, low-dose aspirin, low molecular weight heparin. One thing I need to point out is that IVF medications are safe. They do not predispose you to other medical conditions. Our approach in general as a clinic is individualized, and we don't like to over-medicate. You'll hear me repeat this many times in this presentation, but it's central to our care. Individualized approach and individualized care is important, so you get what you need, nothing more, nothing less when it comes to the medications. And of course, many medications, as you may be aware of, are injectable. Your coordinator will provide a step-by-step guidance on how to perform the injections. We'll provide you with video links, we can arrange video calls, or when you are in Greece, we can show you how to perform those injections live. And also, we're able to help you source your medications in your home country at competitive prices. Now, how the stimulation works. A standard stimulation usually lasts about 10 to 12 days. In some cases, we may have a form of pre-treatment that starts a few days before the expected bleed. Then the bleed arrives. Patients have a scan between day 1 to day 3 of the cycle. And if everything is okay, we start the medications. Day 1 of the medications, day 1 of the treatment. Then usually we have another scan around day 5, then day 7, then day 9 of the treatment. And once the criteria for an egg collection have been met, this takes place a couple of days later. It's a process that's very straightforward. It's fairly quick, takes about 10 to 20 minutes, and it's done under mild sedation. On the same day, once we know how many mature eggs we have, we perform ICSI on all of them. And we culture the embryos till the blastocyst stage. Of course, once we know how the process works, we need to understand how everything will apply to NewLife. So what your journey will look like is what I describe in this slide, essentially. Everything starts with the initial contact. You can reach us via email or via phone call. Then our engagement department will send you the medical questionnaire that you need to fill in. They'll request some key assessments, such as an AMH blood test, an AFC scan that's performed between day 1 to day 4 of the bleed, a semen analysis if we're using partner sperm. And because we said that we offer an individualized treatment, it's extremely important to have a thorough understanding of your medical history. So previous medical records may request it when available. Once we have all that, then we're ready to schedule a free medical consultation with your doctor. This can take place either live or via video call. During this consultation, your doctor is going to go over your medical history, and they're going to form a personalized treatment plan for you. Along with the doctor, usually there is also a coordinator or an embryologist to explain to you the logistics. Following the consultation, if you're happy to proceed with us and you agree to treatment, at that point, your case will be passed to a dedicated international patient coordinator. Your coordinator will help you organize the treatment, your blood tests, your medications, your consent forms, when to come to Greece, you name it. And then we get to the star of the show, which is starting your treatment. and running your treatment, we have two options. Either you start in your home country and you come to Greece for the last phase of the treatment, or you're here for the whole thing. We'll go into further detail later on in the presentation on how those options will work. And of course, should everything go to plan, then we have the positive pregnancy test, marking the completion of the treatment. Now, patient journey is clear enough, but I'm sure you have questions on logistics. In general, as we mentioned previously, the treatment for the stimulation part lasts about 10 to 12 days, plus 5 days if we can have a fresh embryo transfer. If we cannot have a fresh embryo transfer and we have to have a frozen one, then the preparation for a frozen embryo transfer is 17 to 21 days. What does this mean when it comes to your length of stay in Greece? It all depends on the option that we select. Option 1 is starting in your home country and traveling to Greece later on. Usually you perform about 2-3 scans back home and you come to Greece for the last scan or the last 2 scans and you stay till the egg collection or the embryo transfer. So the length of stay is about 4 to 6 days without an embryo transfer, 8 to 10 days with an embryo transfer. The other option is to be in Greece for the whole treatment. So you arrive to Greece a couple of days before the expected bleed. And in this scenario, we have a length of stay of about 2 weeks without an embryo transfer or about 3 weeks with an embryo transfer. You can see I keep on saying whether we can have like a fresh or a frozen embryo transfer. And this depends on whether you meet the criteria for an embryo transfer or not. There are situations where doing a fresh embryo transfer is not feasible, such as when we have genetic testing of the embryos, where we need to biopsy them, have the results, and then proceed with an embryo transfer after we know that we have genetically normal embryos, where we may be at risk of ovarian hyperstimulation, or situations where simply the lining has not met the criteria during the stimulation to have a fresh embryo transfer. There is no way we're going to compromise success rates. So in such scenarios, we freeze the embryos and we proceed with a frozen embryo transfer in a subsequent cycle. A frozen embryo transfer, it's much simpler when it comes to the logistics. You have all the monitoring back home, and technically you need to be in Greece for on 1 night stay. You arrive the night before the embryo transfer, the next day you have the embryo transfer. You can fly back even on the same night as the embryo transfer. Of course, throughout this process, because you will be needing monitoring while you're at home, we will be here to tell you when, where, and how to complete your scans and your blood tests. We have collaborating facilities in many regions in the world, and where we don't, we are always happy to work with your local doctors, providing letters and paperwork you may need so that you can be able to perform the assessments we request. At every stage of the treatment, your doctor is the one that reviews any assessments you forward us, evaluates your response, and adjusts the plan if needed. And that plan and instructions are being sent to you so that you can follow it. Your coordinator essentially will be the one that relays those instructions promptly and will be able to also guide you on when it will be the best to travel to Greece. Of course, we need to discuss something that's extremely important in decision making, which is costs. And because transparency is also essential to the decision making, I have included them in the same slide. Why though together? Let's go over point by point. The package that we offer with ICSI costs 3,750 euros. This includes your initial and any follow-up consultations, your stimulation monitoring, egg collection, the fertilization with the technique of ICSI, the culture of the embryos to the blastocyst stage, and backup sperm cryopreservation. It does not include any medications you buy or any scans you perform in your home country, but any scans you do here in Greece are included. In general, patients are informed in advance on any possible costs. So you'll know what you will be requested to pay from day one. There are no hidden fees. I mean, there can be situations where something comes up out of the ordinary. For example, you may have a scan, you may see that you have a polyp. In those scenarios, and you may need, for example, a hysteroscopy and a polypectomy. But again, even in those scenarios, we'll give you options. We'll explain to you your options when performing this here at our clinic, or what you can do to have the operation done in your home country through your own NHS. And of course, something that is very important to point out is that payments are made in stages. And at each stage, you're paying for the services you're being provided. You're not going to be paying, for example, for an egg collection or an embryo transfer before you have one. This does not make sense, at least not to us. So why have treatment at NewLife? Because as a clinic, we are one of the leading clinics in Europe. We have outstanding success rates, which are the outcome of the personalized treatment plans we offer, the cutting-edge technology we use, and the excellent know-how our personnel has. We have a patient-centric approach. We have a team that is experienced with taking care of patients that come from all over the globe. Transparency is something extremely important, especially when it comes to the care. And all this is what has led to NewLife being trusted by patients worldwide and essentially allowing us to make your hope happen. So this essentially completes the presentation. I thank you for your time and attention. I hope this has given you a clear picture of how the stimulation, the fertilization, the logistics, the costs work at NewLife IVF Greece, and how our patient-centric approach supports you throughout this whole process. I have prepared some frequently asked questions, but I can see that you have already a few questions in the chat. So I'll first go over through those, and then we'll address the frequently asked questions. So, a very good question is a frozen embryo transfer. What it is, what does it mean? Essentially, frozen embryo transfer is where on the day that we have the egg collection, all right? And from the point of the egg collection till the embryos become blastocysts, which is the 5th or the 6th day of the embryo development, they are cultured in the lab. Once they become blastocysts, we have two options. Either transfer an embryo on that day, which is a fresh embryo transfer, or freeze the embryos and have a frozen embryo transfer, which means that the embryos are frozen in the lab, they are locked in time. So it's also a form of fertility preservation, because no matter when you transfer that embryo, you will always have the same success rates as the day it was frozen. So the process of transferring a frozen embryo in a subsequent menstrual cycle is called a frozen embryo transfer. Another question we have is, can you offer sperm donation if I use my own frozen eggs from the UK? We have collaborating sperm banks that we can suggest, and you can look and order sperm from. So the process would be, you ship us the eggs from the UK, and once you select the sperm donor of your choice, then the process of ordering and shipping the sperm here is very straightforward. You just place the order, the sperm company contacts our lab, and then once the sperm is here, we can proceed with your treatment and the fertilization. How many embryos will you implant at one time is what Jennifer asks, and it's an excellent question. In general, as a clinic, our approach is to transfer 1 or 2 embryos at a time. Transferring 2 embryos has a risk of twins. So it's very important for us to evaluate on whether we can risk having a twin pregnancy, because a twin pregnancy can be considered a complication of in general. So we need to make sure that you don't have any other factors that could predispose you to gestational complications. Also, regarding the second part of your question, Jennifer, about the length of stay, it depends on how we run the treatment. In the case that you start your treatment in your home country and travel to Greece for the last part, which is usually something that is an option to patients that reside in Europe, and the time differences allows being able to start in your home country because we can review your scans on the same day, then we're looking at a stay of 4 to 6 days without an embryo transfer, 8 to 10 days with an embryo transfer. If you're here for the whole treatment, then the length of stay is about 2 weeks without an embryo transfer and about 3 weeks with an embryo transfer. But that means that you need to arrive a couple of days before your expected bleed here in Greece. Marie, you're asking about whether we provide counseling for those considering donor conception. It's something that indeed we're able to guide you on. The main focus of this presentation is, although it's stimulation, so mainly focusing on using your own eggs and like either partner sperm or donor sperm. However, here you can see our contact details, and you can also check our email address. And if you wish, you can email us there and we'll provide you more information on the donation side of things. Can you help with shipping frozen eggs from the United Kingdom? It's a process that we can definitely support you with. The process goes with selecting a courier company that will be able to do the shipping, and we have many to recommend that we have worked with. As a clinic, we receive genetic material from all over the world on the daily. It's a process that requires some paperwork from our national authority because the UK is no longer a member of the European Union, so we need to get approval to import genetic material from a third country, but it's just a bureaucratic process. But definitely it's something that we can assist you with, indeed. If it interests you, again, you can contact us. You can provide us the details of the eggs you have frozen in the UK, and so that we can assess them, confirm that we're able to accept them, and get the process started. Do we cooperate with any sperm banks outside of Greece? Indeed, we do. And the majority of the sperm banks that we use actually are European and tend to be more like Nordic and Scandinavian, like mainly Danish. It is completely safe to fly home after an embryo transfer, even on the same night as the embryo transfer. And it doesn't have to do with the length of the journey, because we have patients traveling like to countries such as like the US, Canada, Australia, which is like a 2-day travel practically. Rana, of course, I can put up the slide that has our details, and I'll leave it on so that you can be able to have a look and note them down. Another question we have is whether we would provide IVF with ICSI with own eggs at 49 years old. As I mentioned, an individualized approach is key. So we need to have a thorough understanding of your case, of your ovarian reserve, so that we can be able to make personalized recommendations and explain to you what your chances are, what hardships we may be facing, so that you can be able to make an informed decision and guide you on what will be the best route to essentially get you to your goal in the optimum way. Excellent question on whether we continue monitoring after you fly back home. After the embryo transfer, usually the pregnancy test happens 9 days later. If positive, usually we have another repeat 48 hours later to see how levels rise. And at that point, we'll provide you detailed instructions on how to slowly discontinue the medications which you will be taking up until the 12th week of pregnancy, and definitely advise on when to perform at least the first pregnancy scan, which it's the point where we essentially pass the mantle to your medical team that will be taking over in your home country. However, we're always there to support you to the extent we can throughout this whole process. So if at any point there's anything you require from us, we're always available to assist you, even like throughout the pregnancy. And for example, if your doctor requests something, if we need to work with them on anything, it's a given. An excellent question. What if the first round fails? It all depends on at which stage we have what we call failure. For example, if we get to the point of an embryo transfer, we have a negative test. If we have a miscarriage, if we get to the point of an egg collection, we don't collect eggs, or if we have a cancellation before that. In general, the approach is to take out your file, your doctor sits down, assesses everything, has a meeting with the whole medical team, and essentially then we have a discussion with you on what were the potential reasons that had led to the outcome that we had, what changes we need to make, and then set a plan for trying again. See if I have missed any questions. In general, I know questions may be coming and going. It's a lot of information that I have shared, so I'm here to answer them. I don't want you to hesitate. As I said, this is anonymous. Nobody can see what you're typing, so feel free to ask. What are some of the other costs? I mean, as I said, we don't really have any hidden costs, but for example, there can be add-ons that we use, such as like the sperm sorting device, time-lapse monitoring system, genetic testing. If applying it depends on the type of genetic testing. For example, we may have PGTA, PGTM, PGTSR, depending on what we're looking at. So there can be things that can apply to every single case. Now, what is used and when, it has to do with everyone's specific circumstances. But as I said, it's something that you will know in advance before there is a need to use any of those means and pay for them. So I think, Ellen, you're referring on whether we use AI in the scoring system when it comes to assessing the embryos. Is something that currently we do not. Because technically we don't believe AI is there yet. The moment it is, and we feel comfortable that we can implement it to a system, we will. At this, for the time being, our embryologists that have years and decades of experience on their back are the ones doing the evaluation of the embryos, following the Gardner system. And of course, once you have the embryos created, you will be provided with a detailed report and a detailed explanation of the quality and the grading every single embryo you have has. Just scrolling up to see if I have missed any question. In the meantime, I'm going to open the slide with the last questions so that you can have enough time to write any questions you may have. Some questions patients may have is whether we can manipulate the cycle to fit travel schedule. This depends on everyone's individual circumstances. We need to assess on whether we can consider it and whether it will impact or not the treatment negatively. If there is a difference between the fresh and the frozen embryo transfer, which there isn't, so long the criteria for an embryo transfer are met, we're able to have either with the exact same success rates. For younger women, if there is a risk of ovarian hyperstimulation, in general, we are an ovarian hyperstimulation-free clinic, and this is both due to like the modern and individualized protocols we follow and the individualized approach, as I said many times. Genetic testing on the embryos is something that is allowed in Greece, but certain criteria have to be met. Essentially, as a process, it requires approval from the Greek National Authority of Assisted Reproduction. And it's something that is offered in women that may be above the age of 40, may have 2 or more miscarriages, 3 or more failed IVF treatments, or may have an abnormality in their karyotype. And I think the last question was already asked in the chat, so I'm not going to go over it. It's about what happens if we have a failure, we regroup, we reassess, and we essentially see what the next steps would be. Another question I can see is, what are the success rates for women that are 44 years old? Now, everyone's success rates, like if we're looking at something that is individualized, has to do, again, with our own specific circumstances. But in general, as a clinic, our success rates on average when it comes to the pregnancy rate of women that may be above the age of 42, with genetically tested embryos, we're looking at a success rate around like 55%. With untested embryos, we're looking at around like 26% for a positive pregnancy test. So let me put on the page with the costs again. Just give me one moment. There we go. As we said, like the main package costs 3,750 euros. Again, we may have add-ons. For example, I mentioned like the sperm sorting device, which for example is an extra 220 euros. We have the time-lapse monitoring system, which is 540 euros, like things like that are extra to the cost. Ron, I'm afraid I don't have such specific success rates. Like I can give you like the range set for women that fall of like the 42 and above. But I would be more than happy to provide like more personalized suggestions after I consult with the medical team. And once you share, if you wish to contact us and share more information about your case, and then we can provide you with more details on your own specific success rates with your own eggs. I can see someone is typing, so I'm waiting. Perfect. In general, let me bring this up again. in general, when we're talking about, just give me a moment, does the cost include scans in your home country? No, the scans that you perform in your home country are not included in the cost of the treatment. Those are charged extra. The scans you do here in Greece are included at the cost. So this is why, for example, many times patients may say that they want to have the treatment, the whole treatment here, or come even earlier, because it may work out to be cheaper to be here, enjoy a vacation, just pay for accommodation, what they spend on the daily, instead of paying for scans in their home country. So if they're flexible with the work schedule, many times it's an option we offer. And if we're being honest, it's an ideal scenario, because we do the scans ourselves, and scans tend to be a live process and live assessment. So the sonographer doing them, if it is your own doctor that makes a decision for the treatment, is always the ideal. This is exactly why we definitely want the last scan to be done here, so that we can be 100% certain that you have met the criteria for an egg collection, and we select the correct trigger medication, so that we can have the best yield when it comes to the egg collection and the best maturation rate. So at this stage, if you're done with the questions, we can complete this live. Again, I have brought up the slide with our contact details. And of course, if you would like to contact us and ask us any questions you may have, we would be more than happy to answer them and form the best plan for you, so that we can be able to create the family that you desire as fun and as effectively as possible. You're welcome, Ella. Thank you very much for joining this meeting. It has been a pleasure. Once again, I would like to thank My IVF Answers for giving us the platform to have this discussion. I wish you all a good night, and goodbye for now.